So, 2020 was, well...
The states of California, Ohio, and Illinois announcing they're closing down all bars in an attempt to slow the coronavirus's spread.
Large crowds of demonstrators in multiple cities getting more violent following the death of George Floyd.
As the number of cases in the U.S. hits a new milestone, hospitals across the country now pushed to the brink, some already running low on supplies.
Breonna Taylor's family is suing 3 Louisville police officers after the 26-year-old woman was shot and killed in her apartment.
Wildfires continue ripping through the nation's western states, and right now California is seeing the worst of it.
This comes as firefighters mourn one of their own, who died in the El Dorado fire, sparked by a botched pyrotechnic at a gender reveal party.
President of the United States now confirming to the world that he and the First Lady have both tested positive for the coronavirus and they will quarantine.
He knew the coronavirus could be transmitted through the air and was 5 times more deadly than the flu, even as he was publicly saying it wasn't.
With COVID claiming 278,000 lives in the U.S.
Grant Imahara, the longtime co-host of Discovery Channel's Mythbusters, has died.
Chadwick Boseman of Black Panther fame has died at the age of 43.
Longtime Jeopardy host Alex Trebek has died after waging a brave and very public battle with stage 4 pancreatic cancer.
Yeah... So, the year will rightly go down in history as bad, but while we're all moving on and trying to make this 2021 less awful, I figured it was time for a note of positivity. In this video, I'll be quickly running through my favorite media of 2020, just to show that while yes, 2020 sucked, it at least saw the release of some cool things that helped us not go insane. No particular order to this thing other than breaking it up by category. Live action stuff, videos game, book, and cartoons. Yes, I realize I'm pretty much doing an eye patch wolf here. No, I don't care. Let's just get to it. This is Tyranno's favorite media of 2020. Asterisk, Tyranno has not consumed all the media of 2020. Please do not hop in the comments with, well, what about this? I know, and I do not care.
Dear Diary, go fuck yourself.
I Am Not Okay With This is a coming-of-age comedy drama about a young woman named Sydney, who's kind of an awkward loner, except for her one best friend, Dina, whom she's actually in love with and is terrified of losing.
Sorry, wait. Go to bed. They both call each other Dave. Kill me right now.
Oh, and she's also developing telekinetic powers just to mess her up even more.
I am way more fucked up than I thought.
It's just as awkward an experience as it sounds, and it's more heartwarming than you might expect. All 7 episodes of this series were one big mood. Maybe none of the ideas or emotions it aimed to tackle are altogether new, but that didn't prevent them from resonating. Following Sydney as she searches for a sense of purpose or meaning in her life, quickly spiraling out of control, wanting to reach for something better but fearing destroying what little good she already clings to, all accentuated by a perfect rock soundtrack and radiant performances by the leads that endear you to these characters almost as soon as they appear on screen. The show is strange and sometimes painful, but in all the right ways. After all, that's just what growing up's about, and this show did melt my heart in all the right ways. The most tragic thing about this series was that it was actually renewed for a season 2, plans which were then canceled due to, you know, the Backstreet Boys reunion tour, and man, that just rustles my jimmies, only because that was the most enormous of cliffhangers. The narrative left so wide open that I can't help but gawk at the audacity of choosing to end a season of television on a note like that. The Haunting of Bly Manor is a Netflix horror show, though I would sooner classify it as a drama tragedy with horror elements, or no, first and foremost, I'd actually call it a love story. And maybe that's why it resonated with me like it did, because I'll let you in on a secret. Me and horror don't jive well. That may make me a tad boring, I know, but I'm just being honest with you. There are exceptions, of course. The Thing will always be great, but for the most part, I take more comfort and see more value in, shall we say, more wholesome narratives. And Bly Manor, it ain't exactly wholesome 100, but it gets much closer than I ever anticipated. It's about a young woman named Danny who's hired as an au pair for a wealthy family out in the British countryside. She meets and befriends the kids and the other hired hands around the house as an escalating series of paranormal happenings throw everything into chaos. Mysteries and histories are revealed as the true nature of everything comes into focus, and while all of that is great, the true heart of the series is in its character work. Flawed people making human mistakes, some clinging desperately to what's lost while others struggle to move on. There's a whole lot to dig into there, but to just highlight one thing, I was particularly enamored by the romance between Danny and the gardener Jamie, through which the show explores what it means to live with loss and appreciate the love you have in the time you have it. And in a year like 2020, where the fragility of all around us has become uncomfortably apparent, The Haunting of Bly Manor was perhaps all too perfect a reminder that the love around us, even if it's temporary, will never be meaningless. If you want to take a deeper dive into all of that, 5x5 Takes has a fantastic video essay on the series, which I highly recommend. Otherwise, if you want to smile and to cry and maybe a spook, give Bly Manor a watch.
So yeah, everyone is exhaustive, even the best ones. Sometimes, once in a blue goddamn moon, I guess, someone, like this moonflower, just might be worth the effort.
Next is a little bit of a cheat, but, well...
Alright, that's what I'm talking about!
Yeah, so Hamilton's pretty fucking good. This probably is not a revelation to anyone, but there you have it. I missed the initial Hamilton hype train years back because, what, you think I could afford those tickets? But now it counts as a 2020 thing, thanks to dropping on the streaming service of that one multimedia monopoly that shall go unnamed, and ever since then, I have not got this show's tunes out of my head, and I'm not really sure there's much I can contribute to the discussion regarding Hamilton's importance, its focus on the importance of immigrants to the founding of the United States, casting predominantly non-white actors in white roles to show how America's history is not just white history. All of that has been discussed and will continue to be discussed by people far more appropriate and able to tackle those topics than I, so instead I shall simply say that my favorite tracks from this soundtrack that really helped to make 2020 more pleasant were, wait for it, Dear Theodosia and Guns and Ships, and move on.
What's your name, man? Alexander Hamilton.
For our last live action thing, we've got another kind of cheat. It's technically a 2019 film, but it only got released in my area in February 2020, so it counts. Ladies and others, the best film of the 2010s.
Quel en est le titre? Portrait de la jeune fille en feu.
Merely synopsizing the plot of this film can never come anywhere near doing it justice, but here goes. It's a romance film set in the 18th century. A woman named Marianne is commissioned to paint a portrait of a young woman named Heloise. During their time together, they fall in love before they're eventually forced apart, but theirs is a bond they'll carry with them through the rest of their lives. I'm getting the sense that loving what you have in the time you have it is becoming a running theme in this video. I swear it's not intentional.
Ça raconte l'histoire d'un orage qui monte.
I struggle to find the words to do it justice. It's such an immaculately crafted piece that analyzing it seems a more daunting task than climbing a mountain whilst a ton of bricks are strapped to your back. Sure, I could try to say something like, its incredible script, cinematography, and performances all blend to create a more nuanced exploration of women's experiences of life and romance than anything Hollywood is capable of churning out, but instead, maybe I should just let the film do the talking this time.
Vous pensez que tous les amants ont le sentiment d'inventer quelque chose?
Anyway, what do you say we talk about some video games for once? There's a whole lot to love about Bugsnax. There's the compelling gameplay loop, of course, which sees you gathering a variety of tools and traversing numerous environments to capture all the Bugsnax they are in, and having to figure out through observation the right tools to use and how the various snacks behave and interact with both their environment and fellow snacks in order to catch them, making for an endless stream of micro-puzzles that provide just a base level of satisfaction to figure out. But then there's, most shockingly, the character work. The residents of Snacksburg are all struggling with deep-rooted personal issues, and learning more about them as I helped them with their snack-related problems made for one of the year's more strangely cathartic experiences, whether it be helping a mad scientist look past his paranoia and recognize the love that was with him the whole time, or helping a gossip queen to open up about her insecurities, revealing herself to be a more caring person than she usually comes off as. Every interaction hit home, and for a bunch of walking, fluffy cartoon animals, I was not expecting how real some of these characters' personal and interpersonal conflicts got. I suppose it's a testament to the quality of this game's writing that these grumpuses feel more human than your average reality TV program. And it's especially noteworthy that all of this game's elements synthesize so well. Catching Bugsnax on its own is fun, but doing so also unlocks more interactions with the grumpuses, which you love to see, which in turn incentivizes you to go out and catch more Bugsnax, and it all feeds into each other, and it is great. I love it. And okay, admittedly, half the reason I had to mention this thing was just because I love the bunger so much.
Bunger?
Yes, I do often find myself saying the word bunger to myself in that voice. Please don't judge me. Oh, but you certainly won't judge me for enjoying this next game, Hades. This is quite the last-minute entry on this video, as I only got gifted the game on Steam for Christmas, and to he who sent it, thanks man. But despite only having received it quite recently, I've already sunk 50 almost hours into it. I've cleared it enough times to see the credits roll, and I ain't stopping anytime soon. Yeah, my free time is just gone. People blame Supergiant, they're too cool. What the hell can I add to the discussion of Hades that hasn't already been said by critics more qualified than I? Its base gameplay loop is just so damn addicting. The variety of upgrades and powers keeps every run feeling fresh, controls are tight and responsive, and your enemies' moves are clear and readable, making every hit you deal and take feel earned and fair, even when things get chaotic in the late game. And all of that combined makes for a more gratifying action combat experience than I've played in a good long while. And the genius integration of the narrative elements, having the story progress between runs with various characters having new things to say depending on what's happened, keeps me more motivated to return for run after run than most other roguelikes I've played. And I'm not even one of those types who doesn't like roguelikes. Hell, apparently I've sunk 57 hours into Rogue Legacy and 66 hours into Binding of Isaac Rebirth. I don't remember doing that, but for Hades in particular, everything, you know, it just works. And maybe that has something to do with 2020, in a year defined by everyday monotony, throwing yourself at the same thing over and over, except actually making progress each time, no matter how minute, was something of an escapist fantasy. Fitting, considering the game's all about escaping an oppressive environment. Anyway, for my last 2020 game of note, I need to talk about something decidedly off-brand for me, depending on what you think my brand is. So this game set the internet on fire, and I would be lying if I said my inner contrarian didn't take some small pleasure from seeing all that and then pushing up my fake glasses all like, well, actually. But here it is. I really dug this game. Yes, me, the magical girl watcher person who loves all the cute and wholesome stuff, was for a time wholly and unequivocally invested in the bloody murder simulator. And obviously don't take this as me endorsing Naughty Dog's bad business practices. Crunch culture needs to be murdered as brutally as many of the characters in the game they put out, but I can't deny that the end product had its claws sunk into me deeper than Ellie's knife into this guy's throat. Let me make something clear here. I have neither the time nor the mental capacity to address all the genuine and not so genuine criticism aimed at this game in this video. That's way too big a task. All I'm trying to communicate here was that this game worked for me. The creative decisions, controversial as they may be, struck a chord with me in a way that a lot of stories don't manage, and there's a million reasons behind that, a million things to dissect, all of which deserve more space than a brief shout out in the middle of a year-end media recap video. All I can do is try to communicate in brief what the experience of playing The Last of Us Part 2 meant to me. A game not just about revenge, as I so often heard, but about trauma, grief, empathy, and healing. I love the game's narrative structure, flashbacks and multiple protagonists and all, through which the game is able to both recontextualize and flesh out its cast, and expand the world of The Last of Us beyond what Joel and Ellie have seen of it. And even through all of that, through all the grand violence and narrative twists and turns and what have you, even through all of that, months later, I still remember and cherish all the small human moments that help sell the characters as painfully human. Ellie playing Take On Me for Dina, and Lev teasing Abby when she's scared shitless.
What's going on between you and your friend Owen? Oh my god, Lev, now? It seemed really awkward. Just go!
And I can't lie, I teared up at the end, and revisiting that last flashback on its own still tugs at my heartstrings. The game was one of the most affecting narrative experiences of 2020 for me. Controversy or no, nothing's changing how I lived that first foray into decaying Seattle with Ellie and Abby.
Talking away, I don't know what I'm to say, I'll say it anyway. Today's another day to find you shying away. I'll be coming for you, okay? Take on me. Take me on. I'll be gone in a day or two.
Plus, it is incredibly, painfully funny seeing men on Twitter get mad about woman with muscle, so bonus points there. Anyway, that's probably the most mainstream this video is going to get for a while at least. Let's get into the printed materials to talk about something slightly more obscure.
Well, I'm going to do a book!
This is going to be a shorter section because while I did do a decent chunk of book read in 2020, only 2 of those things were actually published in 2020, and the only one I want to talk about is a bit of a cheat because while this volume was first published stateside in 2020, its chapters have long since been published in the Land of the Rising Sun. But still, it bears mentioning, as this excellent 2-volume prequel manga to a currently ongoing series will be getting an anime adaptation soon. This is Kageki Shoujo: The Curtain Rises. So this book caught my attention just about right away because its main character, Watanabe Sarasa, is a superfan of The Rose of Versailles and stands Lady Oscar and wants to play her in a stage production, and I'm just like, yes, that is goals. Although Sarasa is technically the main character, I would actually give the protagonist label to her roommate, Narada Ai, as she's the center of much of the story's emotional drama and is dealing with some shit. In short, the manga's about the 2 young women enrolling in a very special, prestigious academy for musical theater. The bubbly Sarasa with the lofty goal of being the best there ever was and performing as Lady Oscar, and Ai with the very noble goal of deleting all men from her life. The 2 end up stuck together as roommates, and as they struggle to survive their brutal school life, they also struggle to bond as Ai's past traumas catch up with and overwhelm her. It's a story not about acceptance or reconciliation, but about moving on. About not letting the past hold you back from embracing the love that's with you, despite how fucking hard that can be. Ai struggles to open up to anyone throughout the story, even pushing away Sarasa, probably the most sincere person she's ever met, who's just trying to reach out and be a friend. Ai's just been floating through life, but she can't just do that anymore and expect to be pulled along. When Sarasa reaches out her hand, Ai has to learn to reach back and grab it. I would not describe this as the most wholesome of manga, but I'll be damned if it wasn't scarily effective in its storytelling. Ai's trauma and the subsequent drama felt all too real, and the story was so effective at eliciting empathy through those events that by the time all's said and done, you can't help but want to give her a big ol' hug. It does warrant mentioning that while those events are never explicit or exploitative in their depiction, they are nonetheless so effectively conveyed that it could get too real for some, and thus warrants a content warning. So if depictions of childhood abuse are too much for you, steer the fuck clear of this thing. But otherwise, if anything I've said about this sounds remotely intriguing, definitely go read this, because in a year where we've all survived through some awful shit and still have awful shit ahead, a story about a survivor of abuse eventually learning to not let all of that define her and move past it is perhaps terribly appropriate. And that's it. That's the printed stuff. Let's talk about cartoons now, shall we? Kipo and the Age of Wonder Beasts is an uber-heartwarming tale about a young girl who goes on a post-apocalyptic adventure and makes friends everywhere she goes. This is the most hopeful, optimistic vision of a future where humanity has to start over, and should that need ever actually arise, we could do worse than have Kipo for a role model. Kipo follows the journeys of a young girl named Kipo, as she finds herself separated from her family, stranded in a world that humanity's been kicked out of. A variety of mutated sentient animals called mutes dominate various parts of the land. As Kipo searches for her family, she'll make friends of both humans and mutes and fight off world-ending threats from both humans and mutes with the power of friendship and unwavering determination. It's a show about changing and learning to accept change and fighting against the enforcement of a regressive status quo. Much fun is to be had in following Kipo and her friends as they explore their strange world and overcome differences to make friends with all sorts of strange new folk. And of course, it is diverse and gay as fuck, themes which are important both on a meta level and to the narrative, and which are things I think we could all use a whole lot more of. Kipo is just far too good a time, and was a nice ray of hope in a year that maybe wasn't so hopeful. And can you believe they just dropped all 3 seasons in a single year? I don't know how they pulled that off, but it sure was a blessing. Next up, we have one last kind of cheat. I'm saying it counts because only its 5th season released in 2020, but that last season was fantastic and a culmination of everything that made it show great.
We're right beside you, ready to fight.
She-Ra has been quite the comfort show for me over the past 2 years. There's so much to love about it that I don't know where to begin, but I suppose I should just focus on that last season, shouldn't I?
Ooh, are we messing with Adora? Kendra, do you have to sit right there? What? I'm not doing anything. Adora, concentrate! Yeah, Dora, concentrate.
You can do it!
In the same stroke, the show both escalates its conflicts and tension to the highest possible levels, while also creating room for something a bit new. Reconciliation and healing, overcoming rage and jealousy to see the good in people, and most of all, forgiveness, things which have always been important but are now at the forefront. Even in the midst of an intergalactic war that spans generations, She-Ra still manages to celebrate love, which is, quite something. For those who know what I'm talking about, I stand Double Trouble, and that climactic Adora and Catra moment had me in tears, made me squeal like a little girl. For everyone else, if you want a kid-friendly sci-fi fantasy show about war, love, and friendship, and a whole heapin' of gay, then please watch this show. It will be your favorite thing ever.
For the honor of Grayskull!
We must be strong.
Last but definitely not least, we have another final season, but this is the epilogue to a much longer cartoon that messed me up more than even She-Ra did. Honestly, this is probably the most important thing I watched this year, and I'm so glad I did.
We are in the future.
Let me tell you something about me. Steven Universe makes me cry. Like, I can go on YouTube and pull up It's Over, Isn't It? Or Drift Away, or the ending theme and start bawling. Hell, even the full version of the opening pulls at my heartstrings. But Future? Especially that final stretch of episodes, fuck man. My heart can't take it. Steven has gone through some shit over the years, and it was so important and impactful that he finally actually had to confront all of that.
Who are you? That used to be a loaded question, but now I can say with confidence that I'm Steven Universe!
Because healing can't begin if you keep all that shit you're going through bottled up inside, if you let it consume you and you start lashing out.
You've been dealing with genuine threats from such a young age. Your body is now responding to minor threats as if your life were in danger.
It's only human to fear confronting your trauma, and at the end, Steven finally allowed himself to be human. After spending so long convincing himself that he wasn't, Steven finally has to confront himself and start to heal and move on. He allows himself to realize that it's okay for him to be loved too, and when everyone's hugging Steven at the end, telling him it's okay, telling him they love him, oh man, it's too much. Steven Universe Future is a beautifully told epilogue that reassures that it's always okay to love yourself, and a heartwarming send-off to the many characters we've grown to love over the years, not to mention the perfect conclusion to what just may be my favorite Western cartoon ever.
Steven Universe Future, here we are.
So, yeah, that was my favorite media of 2020. Lots of that spicy gay shit, to be sure, but also lots of stuff that almost felt eerily relevant. I guess if there's one takeaway from all this, it's that there's always room in the world for love and healing, no matter how awful things get. Things are pretty bad right now, and have been for a while, but they don't have to stay that way. As long as there's love in the world, then just maybe we can build a better tomorrow. But before that, we need some motherfucking consequences. Thanks for sitting through my rambling about a whole bunch of stuff. Make sure to hop in the comments and let me know what your favorite 2020 stuff was. Let's try to celebrate those little rays of hope that managed to shine through that dark year. Next video will either be something topical or planet tests. Planet tests? In any case, until then, thanks again for watching, and don't forget to be gay and do crimes. I burped.